G'day, it's Mia from Australia. You know, when I'm not busy saying g'day to people, walking out in the bush, wrestling crocodiles or throwing shrimp on the barbie, I love to kick back with a few beers and listen to Sam and Jeff on Making Fun of MacGyver. You should too.
Tonight, MacGyver and Nikki must beat the Soviets to find a downed stealth fighter jet and help a Soviet psychic defect. Hey, between Sam, Jeff, and special guest Claire Fisher, who do you think will be the first one thrown out of the hot air balloon that is this podcast? Find out next on Making Fun of MacGyver. It's Making Fun of MacGyver, a rib-tickling takedown of our favorite 80s adventure show, Joni Loves Chachi. Now, come on! It's MacGyver, starring Sam Jordan as the skeptic and Jeffrey Hess as the scientist.
Name's MacGyver.
Welcome, everybody, to Making Fun of MacGyver, the show where we recap, review, and lovingly ridicule every episode of the original series. I'm Sam Jordan, your host, and as usual, I'm joined by my fellow MacGyverite, the top gun of the gang, Jeffrey Hess.
Hell yeah, Goose.
And special guest, the maverick of the meetup tonight, Claire Fisher.
Hi. I suppose I should mention Top Gun is my least favorite movie ever.
That did not take long.
That's neat.
That did not take long for the feminism to come right in. That's a special bonus episode, Claire. Stop. No, we don't have time. Got lots to do tonight.
Look,
Listen.
all I want to say is I could just watch the Val Kilmer, Tom Cruise beach volleyball scene on repeat and be happy.
Okay. Let's
That
leave it at
seems
that.
fine. That is not the scene to which I object.
No, let's leave it at that. Listen, my overwhelmingly attractive dudes and dudettes, are you prepared to see more fortune-telling than Pat Sajak telling you to watch Wheel of Fortune each Monday through Friday at 7 o'clock, or check your local listings?
Yes.
Yes.
Good, because we're moments away from Making Fun of MacGyver, and tonight we're talking about MacGyver Season 1, Episode 6, GX-1. But first, it's our opening gambit. Now, Claire Fisher, welcome back to the show. I mean, it's kind of like becoming your home away from home. You are like a regular around here.
Oh, well, thank you. I always wanted to be a regular somewhere.
Now, Claire is the proprietor of deadfictionalgirlfriendsreport.com. That's where she blogs about all the ways men have done women wrong on screen over the years, and fame. It's a great site, by the way. And while we don't always agree with everything she has, it is a really smart and I think necessary take on the topic, and it's so unique. And she reached out to us about a year ago, and there's that. But and famously, she was also a Jeopardy contestant a few years ago, and I always ask you, but what year was that, Claire, when you were on Jeopardy?
I aired in December 2019, season 36, that Jeopardy was on the air.
Still pretty fresh, and unfortunately a second place showing, though, right?
Well, only 1 out of 3 can be a champion, right? So
yeah.
Second place was respectable, I felt.
But just to make it to Jeopardy on that show shows we're punching way above our class here to have you on this
Well,
show.
when you go in for an in-person audition for Jeopardy, of course now they're on Zoom, but then they were in person, you have to say something that makes them remember you. So they ask you for funny stories, and mine was that I ran a blog about dead fictional girlfriends.
Ooh, yeah.
And I mentioned that the first crop of people we were talking about included Little Joe from Bonanza, the old Western, and Maggie Speaks, legendary casting producer of Jeopardy, who worked for Jeopardy for more than 3 decades, was like, oh my god, Little Joe was my first boyfriend, and I'm pretty sure that's how I got on the show.
Oh, okay. So synchronicity, it all comes together, and our love of classic TV sometimes gets us places, right?
Yeah.
So Clara joins us tonight through our Patreon Perks program. Indeed, we have free ways for you to support the show, but if you do at least 1 month at the Swiss Army knife level, which is $15 a month, if you do just at least 1 month, one of the many perks you receive is the chance to guest co-host an episode of your choosing with us. And Claire, you chose GX-1 tonight. I'm sorry if you can hear me. Why did you choose GX-1? Why did you choose GX-1?
Well, I mean, first of all, I live in the approach path to Teterboro Airport, so like I just have this
I'm
love
sorry to
of
do that to you.
plain sound effects. But no, in all seriousness, when I was doing my watch through to blog about this, and Nikki was introduced, in addition to the completely well-deserved mocking that you gave her last week for also being Lisa, what I noticed immediately was that they didn't really know what to do with her writing-wise, which means that she goes from, like, in the episode where she's introduced, she's supposed to be, like, this hotshot investigator who kind of, like, outwits Mac at one point, to then being basically a whiner damsel in distress for, like, the rest of the season, right? And as I was watching this episode for my blog, I was texting my research team, which is my sister, Katie, and my best friend, Sarah, and being like, oh my god, I need to blog. When I blog, I'm going to write a list of things Nikki complains about and just make that the whole blog, right? So it stands out in my mind as a moment where I was like, they brought in a female character, but they didn't know what they wanted out of her, and so she turned on them, and then the fandom turned on her. So looking forward to picking that apart with you.
Well, we'll
yeah,
see
I
if,
like her version from the previous episode more than I like her in this episode.
we'll see if our fans turn on you or us after having you rip on MacGyver all night tonight, but so be it. We're ready for that fight. So Claire's with us through Patreon. If you'd like to support the show and perhaps co-host with us, check out patreon.com/makingfunof Jeff, we got a few milestones to celebrate tonight. The first one, I don't think you know this, but this is the 50th MacGyver episode we have watched together. It's our 50 episodes of MacGyver. There are 139, and then there were 2 TV movies. That's 141 we're committing to trying to get through here and recapping. So we're at 50. That is 35%. We are 35% of the way through our goal here. So what are your thoughts on getting 50 MacGyver episodes under your belt?
My first thought is that finishing feels totally possible. It feels like at this point, I mean, they go by so quick. You know, we have a real nice pattern going, and it seems like something that's sustainable. So that's my, like, wow, 50, great, let's keep going.
Yeah, it didn't, like in that first year, we were like, oh my God, this is going to
140, whatever,
yeah.
blah, blah. And now we do spin-off episodes, and we do different episodes. And, you know, like I was just telling my wife the other day, like, I'll never, ever go back into radio, but I'll never lose that desire to be on microphone. And that's what this is. So I get a great amount of joy out of it, and I look forward to finishing.
Yeah, our Jeff had a radio career before he left it. But so our top 5 episodes so far by average mullet ratings. We've got 3 that are tied at 7. So I'm sorry, 7 tied at 7. So it's too many to list. So here are the top 3. Two episodes have scored 8s out of 10. That's Lost Love Part 2, just from a few weeks ago. Partners last year, where Murdoch is introduced, and they have the Pete backstory. And number 1 is still the Assassin, the season 1 finale, out of 9. So the Assassin, Partners, Lost Love with a 9 and 2 8s respectively, and then 7 episodes tied at 7 through our first 50. But I might post a little graphic on social about like all the numbers and 50 episodes and what it looks like. So
wait, you've never rated anything 10 out of 10? Oh.
I don't know if anyone's given a 10.
I wonder if you'll ever get...
I feel like I would remember.
I wonder if you'll ever get a perfect 10 then, because not to spoil it for y'all, but like the seasons don't get better as you get to like season 7.
No, yeah.
The general consensus is 3 and 4 are the sweet spot.
Those are kind of the peak MacGyver. They got the houseboat, the Jeep, the mullet, the unnecessary female characters, Yeah.
No, I see everyone's had a few 9s, but no one's given a 10. I guess you always just think that perfect episode is coming. But so besides it being the 50th MacGyver episode we've watched, this is also, as a show, our 69th episode.
Nice.
And
nice.
Jeff, I got to say, when it comes to podcasts, you are my first that I've ever had a 69 with.
Oh, nice.
And it got me wondering, like, I wonder why I've never had a 69 with anyone else.
Have you had the opportunity?
Well, yeah, but I think for starters, it's like, well, first of all, it's like it's a difficult position to be in, right?
Yeah.
To have the willpower to plan and record and edit all those episodes.
Well, and I find personally for me that like being on a microphone like this, like I can get a stiff neck. So you really got to be like physically prepared to be in this position long enough to complete an episode.
Right. Because, and the other thing is like, don't you have that thing to get to this point for a 69? Like each person is always concerned about their own pleasure, right? So to, in the beginning we were just worried about our own pleasure. To get to this point, even into the position of a 69 episodes, you need to focus on the other person's wants and needs.
And that's true. And like we've been together long enough now that I do little things to try and like enhance your pleasure of the podcast. So a lot of times I'll sneak a little thing in there to, kind of turn it up a notch, that sort of thing.
Definitely. There's a selfless quality to achieving a proper
definitely
69
episodes. Yeah.
And it's not for everyone. I know I've had relationships with other MacGyver-loving friends who would have never even tried to do one episode, let alone get into the position where we could do a really satisfying 69.
Some people don't have the stamina to even get to 69.
Right. But this has been an
Mike
enjoyable...
did not.
Mm-hmm.
No 69s with Mike. But
and if an episode lasts longer than 4 hours, call a doctor.
Yeah. But this has been an enjoyable 69 with you, so thank you for doing your part.
Thank you.
Hey guys, you know what? Thankfully, never made it to 69 seconds, the viewer mail fame. All right.
Too long.
Let's get into the viewer mailbag. Okay, we got one letter from Todd in Las Vegas via Facebook. Hey guys, FYI, you have one of the best podcasts I've ever heard. I can't believe you don't have thousands of listeners. Do you ever promote the show? Keep making fun forever, please, Todd in Vegas. What do you have in it?
Yes. So first of all, yes, we do promotion.
I mean, a little bit.
Yeah, no, we've just been sharing it with our personal friends.
Yeah,
door to door.
We put it on CDs, like old AOL CDs, and just mail them out.
I mean, that's, yeah. Well, Todd, first of all, thank you for the kind words, Todd. We do sometimes wish we had thousands of listeners, but we love the ones we have for sure, like Claire, and we really love the small fans we do have. Our goal is 1,000 listeners. We're not anywhere close to that, but I said the sooner we reach that, the more likely we are to follow through with this thing, right, and make sure we get every episode done.
Although we should tell them our new goal is we can get sponsored advertisements if we get 10,000 recurring listeners.
Yeah, but I mean,
so we're only about 100x away from that.
I will note, if you are looking to do more promotion, the aforementioned sister that I have is a social media manager, which is how I get my blog promoted. And it was her idea for me to reach out to you guys when we started the MacGyver trip.
All about those plugs, aren't you, Claire Fisher? Go ahead, give the business name if you want.
Katie World Communications.
Okay.
Well, I recently quit Twitter, and I'm neck deep in TikTok now, so maybe I'll start making MacGyver TikToks. How has no one told me about this TikTok before? This stuff is amazing.
I know. You're going to be addicted.
My sister did suggest I make a MacGyver TikTok, and I was like, I don't know that I want China's military intelligence to have their first exposure to me be me complaining about MacGyver.
Yeah.
I want to get out there with something sassy first. Something they want to...
I don't love the whole China connection to TikTok and all that, and I don't know. But back to the letter here. On the topic of promotion... Yeah, we don't do as much as we should, but we do some. Like in July, we ran a full-page ad in Cat Fancy magazine, physical edition. That got some traction. In September, we rented an airplane, the signs, the banner behind it. We rented an airplane, buzzed it over Fire Island in New York and Provincetown, Massachusetts. And I think the banner said, if you like MacGyver, you'll love MFM. We didn't have room to put the O in there for making fun of MacGyver, but just love the MFM. Didn't hear too much about that, at least not on the podcast.
I did.
Oh, okay. And then just last night, I made a brilliant decision. It was the obvious call. Thanksgiving season here. Happy Thanksgiving to you guys, by the way. But it's a brilliant Thanksgiving move. I called the Butterball Turkey Helpline to get the word out about the show. I think it makes total sense. Captive audience, right? These people they know how to get you out of jams, just like MacGyver. So I made this call.
Welcome to Butterball. To be connected to Butterball Turkey Talk Line, for information on turkey preparation and cooking assistance, press or say 3. If you have a problem, your call may be monitored or recorded to ensure quality customer service.
Thank you for calling the Butterball Turkey Talk Line. How may I help you?
Oh, wow. I'm so happy you guys are still doing this. Hi. Yeah, so here's my situation. I'm doing the turkey this year, and I'm at my parents' house, but they have almost nothing to season it with. I mean, nothing. I'm 340 miles from home. I'm about 20-something miles outside of Bismarck, North Dakota. I'm from Minneapolis, but they're outside of Bismarck, North Dakota. There's nothing around. Car's not working. Let me tell you what they have in the
Well, let me ask you one thing. Do you have a Butterball turkey? I mean, do you have it?
It is Butterball, yeah. Let me tell you what they have here, and you tell me if this... Okay, so this is what they've laid out for me. It's very strange. They've got chocolate, chewing gum. This is paper clips. Okay, magnesium, a seat cushion stuffing, and various parts of... What's this? Various parts of a downed Russian satellite. This is what I'm being told. So I swear, it's like I feel like it's an episode of MacGyver here. You know.
You don't need any of that.
No.
You don't need any of those things. You just go ahead and.
MacGyver was such a good show, wasn't it? Now you think about it.
It was a good show. Yeah.
Was that? Were you alive for those days? Yeah, you're.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay. The mullet, the escapes.
Yep, that was funny.
You know, they only said his name. Did you know MacGyver's first name? They only said it one time on the show.
I don't know what it is.
His first name was Angus. First name was Angus, yeah. Let me see if it's just, if it's streaming anywhere. Let's see. Oh, look at that. It's on, streaming on Paramount Plus. Wow, I could watch MacGyver on Paramount Plus.
Is that why you're there?
In high def, too. And...
Yeah, it's funny.
Doing a web search here, and look at this. There's a podcast with episode-by-episode reviews called "Making Fun of MacGyver." Wow, I've got my whole week set here.
You got the whole week set, is right.
Yeah.
Well, if there's nothing else, I have some other callers on the line.
No, you've been great help. Thank you very much. Those are some good tips that should bail me out here. But thank you, and happy Thanksgiving.
You're welcome.
There you go.
So I was waiting for a run it through the garden joke, but I absolutely love how her advice is like, you don't need any of that crap, just put it in the oven. She's like, step 1, put a turkey in the oven, and there are no more steps.
If your turkey is running through the garden, you did skip a step, though. You skipped the part where you need to remove its head.
Yeah.
I could not get through the line. I have parts of a downed Russian satellite. I could not get through that with a straight face. So...
So we don't have to, this would derail the whole podcast. Just a quick yes or no. Turkey yes, turkey no.
Yes. To eat turkey?
Yeah.
Yeah, even though I'm not having it tomorrow. My first ever vegan Thanksgiving, and I'm bummed about it. But yes, I want turkey.
At the risk of
Tofurkey style?
At the risk of committing sacrilege before Thanksgiving, I don't care for turkey.
No, you're not. It's two against one here. Turkey is dirt bird.
I understand. I respect the tradition, but I mean, my family didn't actually do a whole lot of turkeys on Thanksgivings when I was growing up, so I mean, I don't have that sentimental attachment.
I used to think my poor grandmother was just bad at cooking it, and then I grew up and found out, no, it's just bad.
Okay. Well, happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Yeah, sorry, Grandma.
Eat the sides.
Yeah.
And thank you, Butterball Hotline. I'm thinking maybe that's an annual thing. Maybe if we still got things going next year, I'll give them a call. You can give them a call, Jeff, next year and see what they say. But let me take you guys back now to Monday, November 2nd, 1987. The number one movie in the country for the 6th week in a row is Fatal Attraction, the thriller starring Michael Douglas and Glenn Close. I finally made Jeff watch it. He's got some thoughts. He likes it, but you know what? hate to do this to you folks. It's a special bonus episode for our Patreon patrons. That we got a whole long half-hour review of the movie talking about Glenn Close, the bunny, the knives, all that. But you did like it though, right, Jeff?
Loved it. It's excellent.
Yeah.
It's very good. It's a top quality movie. I highly recommend it. Just be prepared to be nervous from minute 1 to minute 121.
And I just we joked about her a couple weeks ago, but having Claire, you think Claire has some thoughts or would have some thoughts on watching Fatal Attraction? Oh my goodness.
Have you seen it, Claire?
I have not seen the whole thing, but I once took a film class in which it was the only example they offered as a film that would benefit from a feminist reading. And I was like, yes, I'm sure it's
my God, would it
literally
ever?
just that one. Yes, thank you. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, it was a...
I'm going to guess this was a male professor.
The professor was a Jesuit priest in his 60s who had a self-professed dirty mind and actually was brilliant, but had to get through a lot of material, so he just kind of skipped over the feminist media criticism, which was...
Right, and he saw female villain and that... Okay, here you go.
Well, yeah, I mean, female villain with an androgynous name who's a threat to the nuclear family. I mean, and it's the 80s. I mean, there's a lot to unpack. There is.
Yeah.
Well, the number one song in the country, once again, is Bad by Michael Jackson. I'm going to handle this one tonight, and I'm going to try and do this one justice. Your butter's mine. Gonna tell you right. Let's bring it down. Just show your face in broad daylight. I'm telling you on who I feel. Gonna hurt your mind. Don't shoot to kill. Shame on, lay it on me. Alright. I'm giving you on count of 3. Just show your stuff or let it be. I'm telling you, just watch your mouth. I know your game, what you're about. Well, they say the sky's the limit, and to me that's really true. But my friend, you have seen nothing. Just wait till I get through, because I'm bad, Shamon. You know I'm bad, you know it. You know I'm bad, Shamon, you know. And the whole world has to answer right now just to tell you once again who's bad.
Love it. Excellent.
Okay. Jeff, do you feel it beat your version?
No, of course not. I don't think anyone ever beats me at anything.
All right. Well, it felt good. To get that. And that's like a doable Michael Jackson song, but you do have to keep things low until you get to the chorus. But there you go. You're all set. It's Monday, November 2nd, 87. You got the number one movie. You got the number one song. And now you turn it into ABC on 8 o'clock that night. It's MacGyver Season 3, Episode 6, GX-1. And now I hand over the reins of the show to the next level of MacGyver narrators, the gentleman, Jeffrey Hess.
We open with balloons.
I'd finished up a little mission in Zurich, and the Phoenix Foundation gave me a bonus. Some time off and a first-class flight anywhere I wanted to go. So I took them up on it. Signed up for a hot air balloon rally. Slow and easy over the Alps. No schedule, no timetables. Just watching the birds go by. Enjoying the scenery, smelling the fresh air, and reminding myself why eagles don't get ulcers. I did hope we had enough fuel to keep our altitude over the peaks and clear the snowfield. We did, and as soon as we got away from the others, everything kind of worked out. Besides, I'd brought along an expert.
MacGyver, I can't make it. What?
Well, as they say, it's all in the wrist.
Oh, he's got a bottle of champagne. I probably should have said that. I meant to say that.
A bottle of champagne that's just for her, because he's not drinking. He's just eating the strawberries.
Oh, good point.
So he's planning on having his girlfriend, who's also his hot air balloon piloting expert, drink that by herself.
Her name is Heidi.
Heidi, yes.
Of course it is.
They're planning to have Heidi drink that whole thing by herself, and I don't know how they're planning to land this hot air balloon, but it's not going to be with Heidi's help.
Well, fortunately for you, Mac is going to tell you how to land a hot air balloon if you keep watching the episode. But I'm Mr. Mac doesn't drink, and I completely overlooked that. So he opens the balloon champagne for her. But first of all, according to the bird care website For the Birds, which is run by a Northern California veterinarian hospital, birds do get ulcers.
Gee,
because like
that's
humans,
neat.
they have stomach acid in them. Typically, though, the ulcer is caused by some kind of, like, they'll eat something, it'll perforate their stomach. I guess their stomachs are incredibly resilient, so they don't get them very often. But if there's some kind of external damage to them, that can then cause an ulcer. But I think in the context, he means like they don't get stress ulcers.
Yeah, I mean, stress ulcers aren't a thing, though. I mean, ulcers we now know are caused by bacterial infection in humans, so...
Is that true?
Yeah. That in the 60s, they thought it was all stress-related, but they then proved... In order to prove it, a guy who had isolated the bacteria drank the bacteria and developed ulcers, then cured himself with antibiotics.
Oh, that's like how they figured out how scurvy works.
Yes.
So Mac is in the balloon, and they are ballooning along. Mac is saying he's going to get a day off, and of course Mac never gets a day off, because even on his days off, people are having babies, getting chased by the mob, all kinds of stuff happens. So as soon as he lands... Oh, wait, no, he doesn't land yet. Do they land yet?
No, first we go
to the jet. Yeah. So before they can land, we get an exciting cut to a jet chase and a dogfight between what is a Russian plane and a super secret GX-1 American plane. Oof. The GX-1 does not escape. The Russian shoots him down as the pilot uses his last words to tell my wife I love her, and he bails out.
The GX-1 is a regular F-14 here, according to IMDb, and the dogfight between the F-14
stolen
and the
from
MiG-28 F-5E. Where do you think it was taken from?
It was clearly stolen. The balloon footage was also clearly stolen.
Yep.
I'm going to go with, it's got to be like Iron Eagles.
Top Gun. It was from Top Gun. Came out just a year before.
I was going to say that's why Sam was doing the
Probably
whole...
both Paramount properties. Both Paramount properties.
So back on the ground, Mac has landed the balloon where Pete is waiting to speak to him about the plane.
Hey, Pete! What on earth are you doing here? Listen, we have a problem. Would you excuse us a minute, please? Come here.
What's up?
We've
dismissing Heidi
lost
there.
a plane somewhere here over the Alps.
Must be a pretty important plane for you to come this far.
Well, it is. The GX-1.
Oh, you mean the plane that's not supposed to exist yet?
Yeah, well, this is a modified GX-1. It is the most secret, most experimental craft ever developed. But it won't be a secret very long if you can't find the wreckage.
No, wait a minute, Pete. Search for a missing aircraft. Isn't that your department? Certainly takes your kind of manpower. You need radar, infrared, air search, all that
That's
kind
just the point. This is a prototype stealth craft with an experimental cooling system on the engine. Its whole purpose is to defeat radar and infrared. Now, the Air Force has done everything they can do. They have gone as far as they can go.
What do you mean they've gone as far as they can go?
I mean, they can't cross the East German border. The Pentagon thinks the plane is on the other side.
And they can't go in themselves. So it's us.
I gotta say, that pilot, he got the communicate down. He gave his last position and said to tell his wife he loved her. But it's supposed to go aviate, navigate, communicate, right? So, like, navigate, part of that is don't crash on the wrong side of the Iron Curtain. It's 1987. We are not going to be able to get to you if you crash in East Germany.
And a little bit about how stealth planes work. There are 4 things to consider. Visual, can you see the plane? Can the radar find it? The noise that it makes, and the 4th one, critically, is heat. And according to an article I found on PBS, one of the ways that they mitigate heat on stealth airplanes is by designing exhaust nozzles that hot engine exhaust gas mixes instantaneously with the cold air surrounding it. This can not only hide you from like infrared sensors that are looking for heat signatures, but also from heat-seeking missiles.
I just want to thank God we had East Germany to supply, the foils for about 15 MacGyver episodes in these first 3 seasons. I don't know what we would have done without his East German adventures.
You're about to find out because the Berlin Wall comes down in season 5, so you're going to find out. Sit tight.
Plenty of time before then.
But Pete did not come alone. He brought a friend with him. You will remember her from our last episode. Her name is Nikki, and now I only pulled this one clip because there are like 4 or 5 times that this happens, but I think this one kind of sets the stage for what the kind of vibe of the Mac-Nikki relationship that they're going with.
Nikki, nothing personal, but I'm going into the mountains. I'm going alone, and Pete, you should have consulted me.
Listen, I tried to call you more than once.
Oh, yeah, well, I've been out of touch.
Slaving away, as I can see.
Look, I said nothing personal, but those mountains are rugged. I don't want to be
stuck dragging a woman around.
Well, I wouldn't have put it quite like that.
But that's exactly what you meant.
Nikki.
You're a closet sexist.
What?
MacGyver.
Wait a minute. Why don't we just admit that you and I do things a little differently?
Look, hold it, will you?
MacGyver, as soon as I'm finished crossing that border,
I should have known this
babysitting
wasn't
you,
going to work.
I'm going to be at the Aspen House in
Babysitting?
Warsaw and
Hear what you said?
relaxing.
Yes, I did.
Babysitting. I do not need to be babysat.
Courtesy
Yes,
of
I
the
did.
Phoenix
Babysitting, you said.
Foundation.
Hold it. Will you hold it a minute? Let me get a word in edgewise here. Now, you are going to go across that East German border together as a married couple, because that's how I think you will get across undetected. Now, once you are across, once you're at the resort, you can separate. You can each go your own way. Okay? Everybody happy now?
No, nobody's happy.
No, nobody is happy, least of all the feminists in 2022.
Yeah, so
we have some problems with this.
I guess I can conceive of where they're like, oh, well, we need like some girl power character and she's going to be like aggrieved and annoyed and she's kind of obnoxious.
I don't know if they were going for girl power or if they were trying to pull in a will they or won't they, like, unresolved sexual tension angle, because that was super popular in 1987. Like, Moonlighting was a huge hit, right? But, like, unfortunately, Nikki and Mac in this scene, and most of their scenes, they don't have the sexual part. It's just tension. It doesn't work if you just hate each other, right?
Yeah.
And also, what they overlook here, or at least they gloss over, is Nikki's right when she says Mac is a closet sexist, right? Like,
And no closet about it.
Since season 1, oh, I thought I knew all the pretty girls in the office. Oh, my sex partner weighs a lot. Oh, I'm going to be super protective towards every teenage girl I meet. I'm going to tell the hacker in Ugly Duckling not to call herself ugly because she's actually beautiful, instead of, like, saying, like, hey, you're actually brilliant. Don't be, like, image focused, right? I'm going to object to working with multiple female agents. I'm going to say, like, oh, well, Carol and Nikki and I, we do things differently. Like, because you're so bossy, right? Don't get so emotional.
Hold on. Calling his sex partner overweight was a compliment because he used her as a weapon later in the episode. It was
you can take that one.
Plot point.
You can take that one. But, I mean, and it just comes to a head here where, like, Pete's solution, Pete, the manager of these two employees, his solution is, you don't have to work together. I'm going to separate you by gender so that you won't have to navigate whatever weird hang-ups you have with each other. And worst of all, they don't give an in-universe reason why they don't like each other, right? Like, last week, they worked together to solve her brother's murder, right?
And it worked well.
And, like, so what is he mad about, right?
Yeah, I guess they were in competition at the beginning, but she's the sister of his friend who got killed.
Right. And she
claims.
was a really important part of their plan. She snuck into a men's locker room for him, right?
Yeah.
She borrowed soap from a man in the shower.
What kind of woman?
Like, I mean, what is this resentment, right? And
maybe he sees a vague resemblance to Lisa, his long the woman he almost married who got
Brings
shot in the
back
back
bad
climbing the
memories.
chopper.
When my husband and I watched through season 3, he said, wait, they literally just hired one woman and had her play all the roles? Like, that should be what, like, a parody of MacGyver does. Like, that should be a MacGruber punchline. That should not be the actual, like, way that season 3 went, right?
You know who didn't see any resemblance to Lisa? Me.
Well, you have face blindness. You have an excuse, right? But
Now, okay, I'm not going to rebut everything you said because that would be its own special episode, and maybe we do. It was a MacGyver. I think we've already done it. But somebody needs to stand up, probably for the majority of our listeners, who don't come in here, looking to like, oh, was MacGyver? Like, they don't care.
No.
They were men, probably from age 36 to 52 or whatever, and they loved this show as a kid. And back then, and they can't, viewing the show now through the lens of, 2022 as opposed to then. So I kind of disagree with some of your things, but I'm not going to go one by one. I hear you on that. I think it's a lot of revisionist, critique, right? And I'm not saying we can't do that. But
I mean, you started a podcast about MacGyver in 2020. Revisionist critique is all you got, right?
Right. But as far as finding his moral compass. Now she says you're a closet sexist or a sexist. at least he responds with like, no, I'm not, as opposed to like, yeah, what about it, Toots? You know what I mean? Like, you could have still done worse.
You're like, yeah, what about it, Toots? Like, smacks her on the ass.
Yeah,
And
I
will say, in fairness, in this episode, she is not right any more than he is at this moment, because then her next objection is to object to the girlfriend he's been on a hot air balloon trip with, right? And to say, oh, Heidi, it would be, right? I was like, okay, you know what?
yeah, that was pretty catty.
Your coworker's dating life is not your business, A. And B, what's your objection to Heidi? Nice, reliable girls are named Heidi sometimes, okay? Right?
Yeah.
So they're both being written in just a completely unbelievable and sexist way, right?
Yeah,
that
the chemistry doesn't work.
It kills whatever chemistry. The two actors apparently were friends in real life, but like whatever chemistry they were supposed to have is not shining through on screen.
Right. I like the competent version of her where they complement each other. I think like that works a lot better.
Right.
So they retire to the hotel to do a little investigation, and Pete reveals that he has a general location of where this airplane is. But he is scared because apparently the Russians have a psychic. Now the psychic, his name is Sarkosh, and they cut to Russia where he's in like a dark room and he's closing his eyes and doing all the traditional psychic stuff, and he's reaching for pens and his hands are very shaky, and he's flipping through maps and he's saying, bring me that picture, bring me this, yada, 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 and all this kind of stuff. And it works. It works. He finds the same location that the Phoenix Foundation found, and he circles it on a map, and now we have collision course.
Boom.
Immovable object, unstoppable force. Mac versus Sarkosh.
Mac and Nikki
Sarkos.
versus
Let's
Sarkosh.
go
Mac and Nikki
Sarkos.
versus Sarkosh. So they camp for East Germany, where they arrive at their resort that Pete says they're going to stay at, and of course they're still sparring with each other, and it's not going great, and Mac is a jerk, and he's you know what, forget it, I'm going to take off and do this on my own. And when he does so, he leaves at a critical moment because Nikki sees Sarkosh arrive.
Okay, but like the dumb here, right? He leaves to go mountain climbing alone in hostile territory, knowing the Soviets are also coming, on a mission he can't legally request backup for, in circumstances that are going to get him captured, disavowed, or shot, and he brings no backup.
Yeah, he calls it a Tuesday.
What is his plan? Right? Why bring Nikki at all? If you're not gonna, I mean, you don't leave your best horse in the barn before the Kentucky Derby, I'm just saying.
So we begin Axminster 2, and Nikki is pursuing Mac through the woods. So she somehow knows where Mac went and pulls up on his very nice red Porsche, and then chases him into the woods while wearing a pair of inappropriate hiking high heels. Mac is out there hiking, and he sees a helicopter going by, and it's this really stupid-looking Russian helicopter, which looks dorky. And Nikki is trying to follow him through the wilderness and not really succeeding. She's not prepared. She doesn't really have the background or skills. She comes across a German guy and buys his horse, or steals it, but probably buys it, and then promptly loses it. So we find Mac sitting by himself by a campfire at night, and he hears someone creeping up, and he dashes off into the woods where he hides, and he sees that Nikki comes stumbling out of the woods, and she's all disheveled, and she's got pine cones in her hair and all this kind of stuff. And so Mac and her sit down, and he's trying to get her some better clothing, so he makes a pair of makeshift boots for her out of duct tape, of course, and some other stuff. And he tells her to put pine needles under her shirt, and that brings us to the first MacGyverism of the episode.
Does it MacGyver?
So to be specific, he gives her two of his spare shirts and stuffs pine needles between them.
Right, between the
which
layers
she
of
complains
clothing.
about. Which again, why
Yeah,
she
I mean,
does
in
not
her
stop
defense-
complaining.
But, like, in her defense, pine needles under your shirt, not great.
Well, you know, this could be solved if she had brought any gear or equipment to a search and destroy mission. She knew she was going to the East German Alps, and she didn't bring hiking boots. I mean, what kind of agent is she, right?
A very bad one.
Yeah.
Well, you know my theory that she's a thief and not any kind of agent at all.
Well, then why is she here?
She's stealing from the Phoenix.
She doesn't speak German. She can't climb mountains. She didn't bring a coat. She didn't bring boots. I mean, like, I myself could do better in this situation than Nikki is now doing.
She is there to antagonize Mac.
Yeah.
So, according to the outdoor website OutdoorLife.com, this is actually a terrific idea. And they say in the event that your clothes don't offer enough insulation, you can use one of the oldest tricks in the book, which is to stuff your clothing with other insulating materials. This creates dead space between your body and the elements so that the colder air and elements can't strip heat away from your body more quickly. So pine needles are one thing, dry grasses, moss. Try to find something dry, leaves, anything like this that's going to create like an air pocket buffer between yourself and the outside. So this 100% MacGyver's. They do say it might be a little prickly, but it's better than freezing to death.
I can confirm because we used to practice how to do this in the Girl Scouts. So I have
sticking
done this.
Needles in your shirt, pine needles.
Yeah.
Did you ever do the thing where they chuck you in the clothes chuck you in the pool in your clothes and you've got to like inflate your pants?
No, I must have missed that day.
Yeah. If the cloth gets wet, you can tie off the legs of your pants and blow it up like an inflatable.
Oh. Okay.
So they end up sharing a sleeping bag.
Which she also complains about.
Which she does complain about, but it's not shared in the way that Season 1 MacGyver would, and she compliments him on being a perfect gentleman, as in not having sex with your coworkers.
No lizard meat tonight.
Nope.
Not having sex with your coworker who is doing nothing at all to indicate her interest. I'm like... So literally, she's thanking him for not actually committing sexual assault. The 80s were a weird time.
Mac does the playing hard to get thing. You know, I'm just going to roll over. Now, wouldn't he offer her the sleeping bag? He's just like, I'm going to roll over, and if you want to squeeze in here, you can, but...
Because it's probably heckin' cold.
Yeah. She says, like, oh, you only brought one sleeping bag, and he points out, quite rightly, she was not supposed to be there, right? Yeah. So why would he have packed a sleeping bag for her?
So they do manage to locate the Russians who are at an abandoned they switch back and forth. It's either an abandoned mine or an abandoned barracks. They keep saying two different things. But the Russians are there, and they have found the pilot's body dangling from a tree. And, of course, the Russians, being awful orcs, refuse to bury the body at the request of the psychic, who uses whatever is on the body to accurately locate the crash site and direct them in that way. And you know that the psychic knows they're there because Mac peers at him through his binoculars, and the psychic looks back down the barrel of the binoculars, and dun-dun! That is the end of Axminster 2.
Woo! Wow, the cheese was creamy on that one. Like, Mac staring right into the camera was so well lit. And then Starkos looking right into the camera. That had me giggling. That's my most make funnable for this episode.
I love it.
I have to ask you guys, at this point so my husband watched this one with me, and at this point he assumed that the psychic was a cover story, like that the Russians actually had some kind of better surveillance than they were letting on, and so the psychic was a cover story. But did you guys assume he was a real psychic from the jump?
Yes.
Okay.
Kinda? Yeah,
okay.
kinda.
Just wondering, because there are two ways to read this. There's several things that the psychic does that you could say, like, okay, maybe he just has like a really thorough understanding of the situation, you know, and maybe he's found this plane the same way Mac did, right? But you could also read it that he's actually psychic.
Well, I thought what was going to happen is that the guy believes he's a real psychic, and then Mac would like bust the psychic things that he does, a la the Ghost Ship episode where he's like, I don't believe in myths, I believe in answers or whatever like that.
Yeah.
But then he doesn't. Like, they just leave it that the psychic does psychic things.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's kind of surprising because that's not the tack that Mac has taken up till now, right? Mac's been and also this is an episode about, you know, a super secret plane that's not supposed to exist, which like we now know because of things
that Mac knows about.
We now know because of things that have been declassified, like a lot of the flying saucers and UFOs in Area 51, that was all just like experimental planes that nobody wanted to admit existed, right? So I kind of thought we were going for like, yeah, there's going to be some secret reveal that he's not really psychic. But that wasn't how they played it.
Yeah, really, this one could have been called Ghost Plane after Ghost Ship. Just Fire and Ice he would have needed to worry about. But all right, we got 2 Axminsters down. We're halfway home. Let's take a break, and let's get a time capsule commercial in right here.
I gotta take a break. I wanna play in the rain and take a break. Gotta take a break. I wanna play in the rain. Gotta take a break. I wanna play in the rain. 7-Up so cool and clear. Yeah, it feels as good as the rain that's out here. Gotta take a break. 7-Up. I wanna play in the rain and take a break. It's so good coming down. Gotta take a break.
7-Up just like
New
makes
Jersey?
you dance, and I'm a big Bruce Springsteen fan. I'll be seeing him in February.
Do you not get Bruce
7-Up just does
Springsteen
that.
vibes off that terrible jingle?
A little bit.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
it was
a
the
little
late
bit.
80s. They were doing things the very Bruce Springsteen-y way.
Yeah. 7 Up, guys, any thoughts? It's still around. It's been around longer than Sprite. I think most people think of Sprite first, but 7 Up still a solid soda.
Yeah, the non-caffeinated sodas really hold a special place in my post-dinner heart.
The part where they're singing about the rain kind of makes me think of 7 Up, the classroom game that they used to make you play on rainy days when you couldn't go outside for recess. Heads up, 7 Up. So 7 Up and rain apparently have a documented connection here.
I really had a thing. Actually, I remember coming out in 87, and I was drinking a lot in 87, 88, 89 for cherry 7 Up. Loved cherry 7 Up with that pink hue, a little bit of sweetness there. I was a big fan of cherry 7 Up.
I really cannot stand cherry-flavored drinks because they were, the cough syrup I used to have to take when I was a kid was cherry-flavored. And I cannot. Artificial cherry flavor just drives me absolutely nuts. I like real cherries, but artificial cherry flavor I just cannot do.
No, if you ever see cherry 7 Up, I think they still sell it, but tastes nothing like that artificial fake cherry flavor. Tastes nothing like that. It's just got a more subtle sweetness to it.
So we begin Axminster 3 at the crash site, near the crash site where the pilot's body is at the old barracks. And Mac and Nikki, of course, being good people, do bury the body. And while they're doing that, they find a note in the pilot's wallet from the psychic that says to follow me. So the psychic's definitely aware that they're there. They do follow him, and the orcs, the Russians, are at the crash site, and they are collecting everything. They're just going to take all the stuff. So Mac and Nikki are following them. They see them bring basically a John Deere tractor up to collect all these pieces of the fallen plane. And while Mac and Nikki are spying, the psychic comes up out of nowhere and starts talking to him.
Had I wanted to have you taken prisoner, I could have pointed you out to Colonel Markov at any time.
Yeah, we got your note.
How did you know we were following you?
How did I know? But I brought you to me.
And why would you do that? What do you want with us?
After you destroy the plane, I want to go back with you to the west.
You want to defect?
Yes. And I'd be feathering you, Captain.
So the psychic wants to defect, which basically every Russian in the 80s wanted to defect to the United States.
I mean, this was a year after Chernobyl. Things weren't looking so hot for the Soviet Union at this stage in history. Berlin Wall had 2 years left to live, so defection sort of makes sense. What I find interesting is that everything he says in this scene could be just a logical deduction. Like he says to Nikki, that he knows her feet hurt. Well, she's obviously wearing boots that were made out of MacGyver's sleeping pads. Right?
And duct tape.
Yeah, and duct tape. Or he says, well, use the explosives you're carrying. Well, they came here to destroy this plane to keep it out of your hands. Of course they have explosives with them, right? But
and Mac points all that out, which is how I thought this all going to go. Mac would deflect.
Exactly.
Mac would give us the answers.
So at this point, they're setting up that he's not a real psychic. Except how did he manage to time this so perfectly that Mac and Nikki would show up exactly when he needed them to?
Right.
So Mac still refuses to believe the psychic because he's Mac. Meanwhile, the Russians say they got about 3 hours before the helicopter is going to arrive to take all these pieces away. Mac manages to climb into the aircraft part and he gets near the rubble, basically. Pulls out his bombs, places the bombs everywhere. The little compass he's been carrying with him is the bomb ignition source, and he blows up the plane. Not before he gets detected, though, so the Russians start shooting at him. Nikki saves his life, as predicted, and Mac does a swan dive off the edge of the cliff as the explosion goes down, which is very
That was
cool.
a good sequence. It was good. Yes. It was fun. It was good action.
Yeah, a clip from this makes it into the opening credits, I believe, of him falling down for next season's opening credits.
Oh, next season's.
I recognized the clip from later.
They update some of their stunts.
Yes.
So really quick, that explosion would not happen like that for a number of reasons, but primarily the C4 plastic explosion that he's using only explodes on an electrical charge. So he would need to string them all together. He only puts the one on, and then they all explode afterwards. But if he did that, just the one would explode, and then literally nothing would happen to the others.
And I also believe C4 does not actually make the pretty cinematic-looking explosions. But of course, that's just because they want it to look better on camera.
Right. It is not explosive. It releases a concussive force.
Exactly.
So you're absolutely right. It wouldn't look like that, but it does look much better on camera than just like a puh.
Yeah, concussive force looks very boring on camera. Very boring.
You guys are so brainy.
So the psychic approaches Nikki, and he's like, we gotta go. Meanwhile, Mac is dangling off the cliff, and the Russians are mad, and that's the end of Axminster 3.
Yeah, Mac is hiding like on a vine or something, not a vine, but a root, right? A tree root, but he's hiding just under the edge of the cliff, and they look over and they don't see it. So I thought that was pretty nifty, too. Nifty photography there. So, yeah.
We resume Axminster 4, and they're back at the abandoned barracks or abandoned mine shaft. I'm not entirely clear which one it is. Mac has rejoined them, and so they have a night together as they're waiting for the Russians to try and figure out how to get the remnants of the plane out of there, to find them. They have to go refill the helicopter. Doesn't matter. They've got time before the Russians come back to them. And Mac and the psychic have a sit-down where the psychic reveals he knows all about Mac.
You're a serious man. You're an intellectual man. You're a man of the mind. Why do you feel such guilt? It's all right. She understands. Your mother, she forgives you. What? It's all right. She understands. You could not go to the funeral. She forgives you. You do not forgive yourself. But she forgives you.
What kind of a dossier do you people have on me? I couldn't be there. Oh, you're good. You're very good.
This is probably the least skeptical moment that this episode has, because it's possible there's a dossier on Mac that's incredibly detailed that they have held at, KGB has shared with this guy. But it seems like an unlikely detail to have in there that Mac skipped his mother's funeral, right? And we do find out later on that this is accurate. Next season, there's some follow-up on this.
And it's interesting that the psychic reveals this, because not only is he showing off his psychic skills, but we're getting little bits of Mac lore here. That Mac is carrying around guilt for feeling like he let his mother down for failing to appear at her funeral. I don't think he has any role in her death, does he?
No. I will not spoil the episode where it comes up again, but basically he was on a mission and she died unexpectedly. And by the time they could get in touch with him, she'd already
That
been...
means both of Mac's parents are dead, right? Because we find out Mac's father died when he was a kid in season 1. And we find out Mac's mother died at some time when he was an adult, which you're telling me we're going to get revealed later.
Yeah, there's some detail in the Christmas episode of season 4.
But it does buy him some time to come up with a solution to get them out of this sticky situation. So the Russians are not going to come until the morning, and Mac starts ordering them around because he's got an idea. And he tells Nikki to go into the barracks and to bring back every piece of nylon and cloth you can find. They're stitching things together. Mac is melting nylon down. And there's a MacGyverism and a half in here. Do we want me to finish what happens or talk about what he's doing first?
Whatever makes you feel comfortable, honeypot.
So let's go ahead and so keep the sound effect in your mind and we'll come back to this, because Mac himself, as they're doing this, Nikki's like, what is going on? And Mac's like, do I need to spell it out for you? They are building a hot air balloon. So they find welding equipment that they can build to use for the heat, to heat up the air in the balloon. I don't think I need to explain how the air balloon works. And then they're stitching all this fabric together, and they're using melted nylon to seal the seams so that the air will stay in the balloon. And the plan is to escape in this homemade hot air balloon.
Hopping away in our beautiful balloon.
This must be where they got the idea for the movie Up from.
Yeah. I mean, it's a beautiful hot air balloon that inexplicably has half of a Japanese flag stitched into it, and I'm like, really? The East German barracks? The rising sun flag is pretty clearly stitched in. And I was like, wow, this was an abandoned barracks with like a lot of gear. I have to assume that they maybe had stock footage of a flight that they needed to match what it looked like, so like they had to just say like, oh yes, this abandoned barracks has all these things. Right?
I get the sense they reverse engineer a lot of that stuff. Season 1, he patches a hot air balloon with a map.
Yep.
A lot of hot air coming out of Mac. Yeah. So do these things MacGyver?
Does it MacGyver?
So first of all, nylon, which he's specifically asking her to find so that he can melt in that pot over a campfire, is known as a polyamide, which is, believe it or not, a popular type of glue. That's according to gluegun.com. Polyamide glue sticks offer many advantages over your traditional EVA glue sticks, including they offer a stronger bond and are good for porous substrates like plastics, metals, and glass. So also good for putting that fabric together. They're also highly heat and shock resistant. Polyamide is a broad category under which nylon is one. It's for anything that has multiple groups of amides.
In fact,
polyamides.
Yeah, during World War II, women in the U.S. were asked to collect their nylon stockings and turn them in to be melted to be turned into glue for the war effort. And my grandmother never got out of that habit. She saved all of her ripped nylons and she lived to be 91. And then during the early days of COVID, when we were all like MacGyvering masks, we were cutting up that for elastic, actually.
Wow.
Hey, baby. I always say you give me those stockings. Don't give me those stockings on your legs right there. Come on, it's for the war effort.
So there are many different kinds of polyamides, and that's kind of where the similarities end and the difficulties begin. Challenge with nylon, extremely high melting point. 515 degrees is where this stuff melts. It's going to be a problem.
Coincidentally, that's what the Butterball lady told me to cook the turkey at.
No way, that's way too hot. Did she say 515?
No, I'm kidding.
Okay, like your average commercial oven isn't even going to go to 515.
I know. You fell for it. It was just a joke.
If nylons had a lower melting point, it wouldn't be legal to sell as clothing because, then you could be injured in a fire if your nylons were going to melt into your flesh.
He's good.
Yeah, she's hot.
Good. He's hot
too,
and she's good. Wait, what are we talking about?
Mac has got a little problem here because this campfire is what he's using to heat up the nylon to melt it. And campfires, the space above them is only about 600 degrees. In the middle, it could be 1600 or more, but where you're getting that heat from is about 600. So it's a close call here if Mac's going to be able to melt this nylon at all. As an aside, this kind of nylon is what 3D printers and glue gun sticks are made out of.
Oh.
Whatever. But if you can generate enough heat to get this sticky substance from this melted nylon, yes, the first part of this MacGyver's, you can absolutely build a homemade balloon out of old Japanese, World War II era Japanese flags that you find behind the Iron Curtain at an abandoned mine/barracks. As far as the ballooning itself, I went to the Albuquerque International Balloon Museum, which says hot air balloons work because hot air rises. And if you heat air by 100 degrees Fahrenheit, it takes the... Let me scroll. I changed the size of it. So as far as the balloon itself, like, is this a balloon enough? Because, I mean, this got 3 people in this basket underneath it. So for some insight, I went to the Albuquerque International Balloon Museum, which says
And you went there physically, too. You actually
booked a balloon.
You just got back last night.
I got in a balloon. I ballooned cross-country.
Wow.
Yeah, it took a long
bit
time.
has ballooned, actually, more than I thought it would. But,
so a cubic foot of air weighs 28 grams, but if you heat it by 100 degrees, it only weighs about 7 grams. Therefore, each cubic foot of air in a balloon can lift 7 grams. To lift 1,000 pounds, you need 6,500 cubic feet of air. And they have a huge balloon here. I don't know how much nylon was in this thing, but they got a huge balloon. And the gas welding torches that they found fire off at 3,200 degrees. So I'm going to be a little generous to them there and say that they built a balloon big enough, they found a heat source hot enough, so not only can they construct the hot air balloon for their escape, the hot air balloon will fly and operate as intended. This also MacGyver's.
And I did not go to the Albuquerque Balloon Museum. However, I did go look up the East German balloon escape from 1979, in which 3 people actually did do this to get out of East Berlin. Ooh. They built a homemade hot air balloon and flew the family across the Berlin Wall.
Wow.
Caveat: it took them 1.5 years of prep and planning to get the right materials because nylon doesn't grow on trees, right? And the first one they made crashed, but they managed to get away from it before the border guards got to it. So, like, the border guards knew someone had tried to fly out in a hot air balloon, but they didn't know who. And then they tried again 6 months later. So, the writers of this episode probably would have remembered that because it was kind of an international media event when it happened. So they may have been drawing some inspiration from real life here.
I've learned more in the last hour than I have in the last 38 years.
That's what happens when you bring a Jeopardy contestant on the show, man.
I'm I'm flabbergasted. I'm losing my role over here. Get her out of here. So they run out of gas as they're flying over, and they're heading towards the mountain. And Mac throws Nikki out of the balloon.
Wait,
but don't worry. Wait, she has a parachute.
Yeah, he put the pilot's reserve chute on her, and that's when she said, "Why are we doing this?" And he said, "I have to spell it out." And it's like, well, yeah, actually, before you start dressing a woman in a dead guy's parachute, you probably should say, "Hey, do you want this guy's parachute?"
First I thought it was just an act of chivalry, which is like he wants to make sure if something happens, she would land safely.
Right.
While the Starkosh and Mac die in a fiery crash.
No, it turns out he was actually planning on throwing her overboard when they needed more weight to lower the weight.
Well, I mean, if a huge balloon like that can only lift 1,000 pounds, and she probably weighs $140, $150, like that's 20%, 15% of the weight that you'd be saving by getting her out of there.
She points out though that he weighs more than her,
Yeah.
and so does Starkos. So either of them could have worn it, but his excuse is, well, but you're the one wearing the chute. Which is true. In that situation, if she's the one wearing the chute, she should be the one to jump because she's going to survive it. But he could have worn the chute, right? Like, she didn't ask for that chute.
Yeah. Fortunately for everyone involved, it works. Starkosh, the psychic, and MacGyver just barely make it over the mountain and to safety, and that is the end of Axminster 4.
They kiss. Mac and Nikki do kiss.
They do?
Yeah, she gives him a kiss and says, "Consider that a professional congratulations," when they see that they've crossed the border and they're going to be okay.
Wow, I didn't even catch that.
Yeah, so this is her
Mouth kiss? Mouth kiss or like cheek kiss?
Yes, they mouth kiss.
But is that the next Axminster?
No. It's before he throws her out of the balloon. After you throw a woman out of a balloon, you are not getting kissed again. I'm pretty sure.
Let me just put you on the spot, Claire. So if Mac is the feminist that you want him to be, tell me how he should have handled that situation.
He could have said, "We only have one chute. Who would be willing to jump out of the balloon in an emergency?" And if she wanted it, they would have done that. Yeah. Okay. But he doesn't ask. He just literally walks up behind her and starts putting the chute on her, right? Yeah, and doesn't tell her till later. It's because I'm planning on throwing you out of this balloon, and I don't want you to die, right?
So we conclude the episode with an extremely brief Axminster 5, where Mac lands the balloon. Nikki manages to find them, and she's absolutely livid with him, and she is going to dress his ass down.
You're the lowest! I should have known there was a reason you gave me the only chute! What's next, MacGyver? Perhaps you'd enjoy dragging me behind a speeding truck. Did it ever even occur to you that I could have landed in a tree? Or in the middle of a busy intersection? What if I hadn't spotted where you landed? Did you ever consider that, Mr. Improvise? And another thing. Wait a minute. Where's Starkos? Don't tell me. You didn't make him jump too, did you?
So she approaches Mac and is like, "Mac, you didn't throw the psychic out of the basket too, did you?" And he says, "Nope." He points off to the psychic, who gives him a goodbye wave and disappears Bigfoot-like into the woods. And that is the end of the episode.
Not before Starkos says, "Oh, Mac, you'll come to love her. You'll come to love Nikki." And no, I don't think that's where this is going. Actually,
More words of wisdom. You've heard the frequent comparisons I make, especially recently, of MacGyver to the $6 Million Man, which I say was my MacGyver in the 70s because I'm older. But on IMDb, it says this episode is an obvious remake of the $6 Million Man Nightmare in the Sky episode, 1976, where the downed experimental jet fighter plane is called the XJ-7. This episode is also a nod to veteran actor Dana Elcar, Pete, who is also in that episode of the $6 Million Man, the only episode of that series he appeared in.
I didn't know there was a connection there. That's very interesting.
Yeah,
a lot of them.
Yeah. We've recapped and ridiculed this one, but now, on a scale of 1 to 10 mullets, it's time to review GX-1.
Name's MacGyver.
So IMDb, folks, out of 279 reviews, give it a 7.6. You know what? I'm going to go first because I have this bad habit of being influenced by who I hear review before me. And I feel like, I should have given it some higher scores. So I had written down here a 6. But yet, despite hearing you two seemingly go a little more negative on this one, I don't know. I like the Starcoast character, even though it's cheesy, the binocular thing. I like that. I like the little bit of action. Yes, the Nikki and Mac thing is a little lame, but you know what? I've realized I hate on this show more than anything is being bored. And for the most part, I wasn't really bored here. And it had a little bit of suspense, but I just like the Mac lore. I like how it ends. So, you know what? I'm actually going to give this one 7 mullets.
So I file this one under the good but forgettable. There's probably not that's going to stick out to me this other than Mac forgot that his funeral was there and Nikki gets really properly introduced as a recurring character. I like their chemistry better in the previous episode than I did in this a I really like the psychic, who is like this combination of creepy and fun at the same time. Yep. But nothing really stands out. Not a lot of great MacGyverisms. The plot moves quickly. It's interesting. It's beautiful setting out there in the Alps. Looks great.
Don't forget Heidi. Heidi's worth a point in my book.
Yes, it's all in the wrist, darling. And Mac's mullet is actually particularly majestic in this episode too. But I think it's. I was gonna go 6. I think I'm gonna stay with 6. This is a 6 mullet affair.
Claire, would you like to chime in?
Well, I will agree that it's not boring. This is an interesting episode. I think the balloon that he makes overnight is a pretty impressive MacGyverism. My main complaint here is everything about this episode just seems super contrived. I mean, why would you send agents who don't speak German and don't have their hiking boots and don't have their cold weather gear? I mean, we've seen other East German missions that the Phoenix Foundation plans, and they're all better supplied than this. So, it's obviously just we want to throw Mac and Nikki into this situation. The writing is also contrived. I mean, Nikki was not a whiner last week. She's not a whiner in the future. Why is she so whiny this week? Only because you want there to be tension. And I mean, Mac just also isn't really up to his usual level of charming either. So I just think there's something off, something contrived. And throwing in the magical realism with the psychic kind of makes me feel like maybe they wanted to borrow something from other more popular shows, like the Will They or Won't They, or the magical realism, but it just comes off like they're shoehorning these things in. Yeah. So I'm gonna say 5 out of 10 mullets because there's good points, but it really just doesn't ring true to me.
Okay, all fair criticisms, but unfortunately, yours just count for this episode. Mine and Jeff go on to the actual Excel doc.
Yes.
So we've got Jeff's 6 and my 7. We added up, divided by 2.
This one's rated 7 out of 10 mullets.
What about we crunch the numbers here with the brainy nerds? So this is where we count up the MacGyverisms from the episode and see how many were successful. Jeff, how did Mac do on his impromptu devices?
He remains on a hot streak. Mac is 3 for 3. You can survive in the cold weather with pine needles. You can make glue out of nylon, and you can have a homemade hot air balloon with welding equipment in your homemade balloon that you made with the nylon glue.
Mac is 14 for 17 on the season.
Yeah. So they reduce the number that they're doing, and their accuracy rate goes up.
Okay, but that is well above his normal pace for successful MacGyverisms.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's behind the East German Iron Curtain. You better make sure these things work.
You got it. All right, how many times someone said MacGyver? As you know, I like to count these up. Jeff always is way off in his guess. It's pretty hysterical, but he doesn't do it on purpose. He really tries.
I do try.
So, Claire, how many times do you think someone said MacGyver in this episode?
I heard about 15.
All right, Jeff?
No, you're totally wrong. There were 6.
No, come on, Jeff. Come on.
I was going to say 6. Is it not 6? It's higher than 6. It's 12.
You bag of rocks. You're so smart on all these other things, and then when it comes to this, you just...
And identifying the faces of people.
All right, the number was 18. They said it 18 times. You are amazing, Jeff.
Closest without going over. Where did they all come from? A third of the episode is with the Russians. And they're oblivious to his presence. Well, they're not. Well, they don't know it's him. They know there is somebody.
Nikki tries to find him in the Alps by walking along and shouting his real name at the top of her lungs. Which is great spy work. Really great spy work. Great. And especially since in context they're posing as a married couple, which means they should have a first name basis if they're married, right? I mean, I call my husband Fisher, but not everybody goes by that.
Fisher! When you're in Target, right? Just yelling.
MacGyver.
How about the most make funable moment? What moment stood out as the silliest? I'll say for me, it was that binoculars zoom where MacGyver just deadpans right into the camera, close up, and Starkos right into the camera. And I think we can get a great moments in binocular watching or something out of that. But what do you guys think? Anything stand out for you here?
We skipped we glossed right past this, but when Nikki tries to buy a horse to get her up the mountain, she asks the German man. He says "Sprechen Sie Deutsch," and she says, "How many Deutschmarks for das Horsey?" Which is just okay, so they sent you to East Germany without any understanding of German. Okay, cool.
And she manages to buy the horse and lose it.
Yeah, and I was like, yeah, okay, so you're not even any good with horses.
Good day for that guy, though, because that horse just went home. So he's got the money and the horse.
Yeah. The horse ditched her and went home.
Jeff, most make funable?
The swan dive off the cliff. So the explosions are going off, and he does, this perfect, Olympian swan dive off the cliff. It's beautiful.
And somehow boomerangs under to grab a branch.
Yeah, we're not going to... Does it, MacGyver?
MacGyver the gymnast.
Well, Claire, you've done yet another episode with us. How you feeling?
Pretty good. I think that there's the addition of Nikki does. So I haven't been able to verify this with any contemporaneous accounts, but it's widely believed in the fandom. The reason her character did not last beyond this season is that they were getting hate mail for her, and it's widely rumored that that's because fans didn't like to see the prospect of MacGyver being in a relationship. But just watching this episode right now, I gotta ask you, should these two people get together?
No, not really.
Does anything seem like no?
Other than work commonalities, right? They could both bond over.
And don't date your coworkers. That's like a recipe for disaster, right?
There's reverse chemistry between them. I am less attracted to my wife now because of having watched these two on TV.
I'm less attracted to Richard Dean Anderson watching him have this bad chemistry, right? And it's just not. So I mean, her addition to this series was a misfire, but I think I can see a little of what they were trying to do, even if it didn't quite work out. Right.
Oh my, doorbell. Let me go see who that is.
Oh.
Oh, hey, Starkos, you're alive.
I didn't know you were coming.
Yes, it is me, Soviet psychic and somewhat senile soothsayer Starkos.
Welcome to America. Why are you here?
Thank you. And I knew you were going to say that too. I have been wandering these woods of United States for 35 years, waiting for right moment to reemerge. And today is that day.
That explains the smell.
It is odd, though, because the last we saw of him, he was in Vancouver, which was pretending to be East Germany.
It takes a long time to walk to both Fresno and New Jersey and St. Augustine.
There is no need to nitpick, my brainy friends. Let me just speak. I was wandering woods, American woods, and I sensed there was MacGyver podcast. I sensed there was a MacGyver podcast, and I sensed it sucked more than it should. So I choose to pay visit to hosts to bring up their spirits.
Okay.
Backhanded compliment.
Yes, and I see you have lovely lady joining you today as well.
Thank you. Yes, I'm Claire.
No, the young lady, you need not tell the great Starkos your name. He already knows. Your name is Claire Fisher, and you are a feminist. And despite that, Starkos still likes you.
Have you read my blog?
No, in Whittling it's no blogs. But now, may I kiss your hand?
Okay.
Mrs. Fisher, I know you feel pain from not winning big cash money on game show years ago.
Well, I've been told by quite a few people I should have bet more on Final Jeopardy, it's true.
But Starkos is here to tell you, Mrs. Fisher, let it go. Because your true fate and the right path was indeed to finish second place that night. Had you in fact won Jeopardy, Starkos can see you would have spent big cash money on crack cocaine and multiple male prostitutes.
My plan was a trip to American Samoa, but maybe they sell cocaine there.
Starkos sees. Please, Mrs. Fisher, Claire, sleep easy tonight.
I was planning to.
Jeffrey, may I touch your hand, Jeffrey?
Okay, let me remove these gloves first.
Yeah.
All right.
Jeffrey,
Oh,
I
yes.
know you have regrets about your radio career.
Oh, yeah. No, yes.
Leaving NPR to follow your wife's blossoming career as librarian. But Jeff, fret not. You made right call. Because instead of informing and educating local and national communities about news and events that matter most to their lives, you instead have podcasted over 73 hours of MacGyver episode recaps while dressing, occasionally, as woman Penny Parker. Jeffrey, the world is better for your decision.
I agree.
I mean, I don't see how we can go wrong with that analysis.
Samuel, your hand finally, please.
Okay. I mean, I might as well go with this, right? You're 2 for 2.
I sense the great remorse you feel for not getting married. You cry many nights because of this, don't you, Sam?
Oh,
But Sam, here's begone. You chose the right path because he would have not given you 69 like Jeffrey has.
What? No. What? I was not going to marry a guy. I'm straight, Starkos.
The great Starkos has spoken. I must now walk off into a remote wooded area and tell forest creatures their future. Hey, Bambi, not looking good for mother. Please, heed my words. Heed my words, and whatever you do, keep making
Watch
fun
out.
of MacGyver.
Watch out, Bambi.
Bye, Starkos. Wow.
Bambi. Bad day's
It's a
coming.
little late on that prediction, but I
Hey, old man from Up, your wife dies.
mean, wow.
Spoiler alert.
Wow,
Yeah,
that was
I know.
not
Jack
bad,
drowns.
Starkos. Yeah. Any final thoughts, Claire?
No, I mean, that's what a way to end. A visit from the great Starkos. He must be, what, 110 by now? Or
You know who knew he was going to be here? Starkos did.
We got a pretty firm handshake, too.
Yeah, I know. I'm glad I took those gloves off.
Jeff, any final thoughts?
It was wonderful. I love it. Thank you, Claire, for joining us. You made tremendous contributions as always. Thank you.
thank you very much for having me.
Would you like to ride in my beautiful balloon?
You're awesome, Claire, and happy Thanksgiving to you and all the fans out there, and a special thanks to our Patreon patrons. We'll just do them quick here because Starkos took our extra time. So thank you to Mia in Canberra, Australia. Thank you to Bo in Fort Myers, Florida. Claire in New Jersey. What part of New Jersey, Claire?
Woodridge, New Jersey.
Not to be confused with Woodbridge, those bastards.
No. Caesar from Parts Unknown. Christian in Norway. Vivian in Taiwan. We hung out with her a couple weeks ago. Love you, Vivian. And one last thank you to Gary in Kelowna, British Columbia. Hey, we're always looking for new friends, so please feel free to reach out to us on social media. Say hi, throw something in the tip jar if you like. But above all else, keep coming back because we are going to keep making fun of MacGyver. So for Claire and Jeff, I'm Sam. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time. Peace.
Oh, you're good. You're very good.